On the day the crown prince married my maid with the grand rituals of a primary consort, everyone in the Eastern Palace was on high alert, fearing I would come to make a scene.
Rest assured, Your Highness, we have made all the arrangements. 20 guards have been stationed at every entrance.
We won't let Miss Chen disrupt the wedding. Only then did the crown prince nod in satisfaction. Yet, even after the nuptial cups were exchanged, I never showed up. This was because, at a palace banquet in our past life, the crown prince wandered alone through the plum blossom garden, where he casually recited the first half of a poem. Someone in the shadows quietly completed the couplet. Their words resonated deeply, and their hearts connected in perfect harmony. Yet, that person remained hidden and never showed her face. To find the soulmate who shared his heart, the crown prince made a public vow. He sought only his soulmate from beneath the plum blossoms. Whoever could complete his poem would be recognized as his soulmate from the garden that day. In our past life, I was the first to complete the poem, so the crown prince believed I was the one who had connected with him in the garden. Later, my maid revealed that she was the one who had actually completed the poem with him. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the day of the palace banquet.
Cold branches bear the weight of snow. Whoever can complete this couplet shall be my crown princess.
He had set up this test today, solely to find the soulmate who had been hidden for years, the one who had connected with him under the plum blossoms. Everyone turned their eyes to my face, waiting for me to claim the prize in one fell swoop. Even the empress looked at me, with eyes full of hope. After all, my father is the head of the Hanlin Academy, and my mother is the daughter of the Imperial Academy's chancellor. But in this lifetime, I do not wish to enter the palace. I stood up and curtsied to Xiao Cong, and suggested in a raspy voice, Your Highness, the soulmate who truly shares your heart may not necessarily be a noble lady of a great family. Perhaps she is a daughter of a concubine, or even an ordinary maid. Could Your Highness expand the pool of candidates? Xiao Cong looked delighted and declared boldly,
No matter who it is, as long as they can complete the second half of the poem, then they shall be my soulmate of the plum garden.
While everyone was in a state of shock, my maid, Qinghe, tightly clutched the corner of her clothes, standing in the center of the hall with a panicked and uneasy look on her face. It seems the young lady of the Chen family doesn't know what the second half is. Could her talent be a sham? If her maid recites the second half, then wouldn't that mean she was the one who shared the poem with the crown prince in the plum garden back then? Amidst the chatter of the crowd, Xiao Cong walked up to Qinghe. His eyes were full of tenderness as he comforted her.
Don't be afraid if it really is you. I will definitely give you an explanation.
With tears welling up in her eyes, Qinghe tremblingly blurted out the second half of the poem.
Cold branches bear the snow's intent. Pure bones await the spring's return.
Xiao Cong's eyes widened. He immediately took Qinghe's hand and walked up to the empress, his face full of joy. Mother, the soulmate your son met that day is her. The air in the banquet hall seemed to freeze. After a long silence, the empress, her face livid, slammed her hand onto the table. Nonsense. I stepped forward, meeting Xiao Cong's hostile gaze. I prostrated myself on the ground. The crown prince and Qinghe are mutually in love. This daughter of your subject does not wish to take what another cherishes. Hearing my words, Xiao Cong froze for a moment, then sneered with a cold face.
Empress Mother, Chen Huaisu couldn't even match such a simple line of poetry. How could she possibly be the one who matched poems with me that day? I fear her previous poems were also written for her by Qinghe.
The empress was temporarily left speechless. She gazed at me with sorrowful eyes.
Daughter of the Chen family, why could you not complete the second half of the poem?
I kowtowed and bowed. I am not a suitable match for the crown prince. I kowtowed and bowed. I am not a suitable match for the crown prince. I cannot share a true connection of the heart with him. I beg your majesty, the empress, to bestow a marriage upon the crown prince and Qinghe. Xiao Cong held Qinghe's hand and knelt before the empress as well. Qinghe summoned her courage and said,
Your Majesty, the crown prince is a dragon among men. If his highness wishes to take side consorts or concubines in the future, this servant will surely be tolerant and generous.
Xiao Cong grew angry, interrupted Qinghe, and swore an oath to the empress.
Mother, your son will surely spend his entire life with her as a devoted pair and will never take any concubines.
The empress let out a cold snort, stood up, and stared at the two of them with utter disdain.
This palace will bestow the marriage upon you. You had better behave yourselves.
After the banquet ended, I walked out of the palace gates. Before I could board my carriage, I heard Qinghe calling me from behind.
My lady, you won't blame Qinghe for stealing your poem, will you?
I smiled slightly. That was something I wrote when I was drunk. Even I can't remember it clearly Truly, how can it be considered stealing? Before I could finish speaking, she suddenly grabbed my hand and swung it toward her own face, then stumbled and fell into the arms of Xiao Cong, who had just walked over.
My lady, I didn't mean to steal your spotlight, but I truly love His Highness the Crown Prince. If you must blame someone, blame me. Please do not blame His Highness.
Xiao Cong immediately shielded Qinghe behind him and warned me in a voice as cold as ice.
Chen Huaisu, starting today, Qinghe is no longer your maid. How dare you strike the future crown princess?
Before I could defend myself, Qinghe's eyes instantly welled with tears.
Your Highness, after all, we are not married yet. If my lady wishes to strike me, let her. Qinghe is willing to accept the punishment.
Having said that, she made a motion to kneel down, but was swept up into Xiao Kong's arms. Xiao Cong looked at me with a face full of disgust.
Chen Huaisu, I never expected you to be like this in your daily life. No wonder Qinghe's poems, both in and out of their lines, are filled with all kinds of grievances.
Qinghe wept as she leaned into Xiao Kong's arms.
Your Highness, my lady is not what you think. It is all Qinghe's fault.
Xiao Cong interrupted Qinghe and let out a cold snort.
If not like this, then how? Doesn't she, Chen Huaisu, just rely on having read a few more books to dare to be so aloof and affected, looking down on everyone else? But we simply detest noble ladies of prestigious families like her. On the surface, they seem fine, like a piece of warm jade in water, but once peeled open, the inside is nothing but rotten cotton. Qinghe, we will invite the great scholars of our time to personally teach you the arts of the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. We do not believe you cannot surpass Chen Huaisu.
Qinghe knitted her brows slightly.
Thank you, Your Highness. Qinghe will surely study hard.
I rolled my eyes, took a step back, and said, in that case, this subject daughter expresses her gratitude to Your Highness for educating a maid from my household on my behalf. It is just that Qinghe does not even know how to write yet. I fear Your Highness will have to expend quite a bit of effort. Having said that, I boarded my carriage, leaving the two of them far behind. Qinghe had striking looks and was bent on climbing the social ladder. At every banquet, she would take the opportunity to slip away, to flirt with the young lords of noble families. A few days ago, a noble lord even came to propose marriage to her, yet she actually refused. It turns out she had her eyes on the crown prince. 3 days later, the Empress Dowager hosted an art exhibition, inviting the noble ladies to write poems for the Imperial Academy scholars' paintings.
Since we are writing poems today, I will yield this opportunity to you.
She had little real talent and could not even write, having only caught Xiao Kong's eye by memorizing a few of my poems. Now, fearing exposure, she was playing hard to get. The noble ladies felt indignant on my behalf. Although it was obvious that Qinghe was deliberately making things difficult for me, no one dared to speak up for me. Since Xiao Cong was the crown prince, I glanced at Xiao Cong, then turned and walked over to the paintings. It is not impossible for me to write a poem, but I have one condition. Xiao Cong sneered.
Noble ladies are always so full of affectation. Speak. What is your condition?
I smiled faintly and looked at the Empress Dowager. If my poem is well written, I ask your Imperial Majesty to decree a marriage between me and the creator of the painting. The Empress Dowager scanned the Imperial Academy scholars and said,
Granted.
As soon as she spoke, Xiao Cong stiffened.
A marriage decree. You are the daughter of the Grand Academician. How can you marry down to a mere scholar? If you marry, it should be to royalty or nobility. Besides, Qinghe does not mind if I take a consort. If you are willing, I will allow you to enter the Eastern Palace on the same day as Qinghe.
I looked at Xiao Cong. Did your highness not say you despise noble ladies like me the most? Why do you still want to marry me into your estate? Furthermore, you know, I am the daughter of the Grand Academician. There is absolutely no reason for me to become a concubine. Xiao Cong paused.
Qinghe is not like you. If she is made a consort, she will be bullied. Chen Huaisu, can you really bear to watch someone from your own household be ridiculed by everyone?
I almost laughed out loud. Your Highness, if you are worried about Qinghe being ridiculed, you simply do not have to marry me. Why make things difficult for yourself? Besides, I never agreed to enter your Eastern Palace. With that, I turned around without hesitation to look for a painting. The scholars of the Imperial Academy pointed to their own works, one after another, hoping to win my favor and climb the social ladder. Only one painting, titled A Solitary Fisherman on a Snowy River, river remained unclaimed. The brushwork of this painting was powerful and the style highly mature. Aside from the Grand Tutor, Fu Yunmiao, I feared no one else possessed such artistic skill. I took up the brush and wrote upon the painting with a flourish. From 1,000 hills, bird flights have ceased. On 10,000 paths, human footprints are gone. In a lone boat, an old man in straw cloak and hat fishes alone in the cold river snow. As I set down the brush, the entire hall erupted in sighs of admiration.
Excellent poem, truly excellent. I Yunmiao am thrice blessed to have Lady Chen as my wife.
I turned around. From the crowd, Fu Yunmiao, dressed in moon-white robes, walked toward me with a half-smile. It was rumored that the Grand Tutor of the Imperial Academy was aloof and ethereal, possessing exceptionally handsome features. Seeing him today, he instantly put Xiao Cong to shame. Xiao Cong stared intently at Fu Yunmiao.
Grand Tutor, this exhibition is for the scholars' paintings. Why is your work hanging here as well?
Fu Yunmiao smiled slightly.
This is not difficult to understand.
As the Grand Tutor,
If I do not lead by example, how can I expect the scholars of the academy to respect and obey me?
he turned to look at me.
Lady Chen is the most talented woman in the capital. To have her write a poem for my painting is my great honor. If we can receive a marriage decree from the Empress Dowager herself, in this life I Yunmiao will have only Miss Chen.
I had heard of the Fu family's ancestral rules, no concubines of lower status, and no secondary wives. Hearing it today, it seemed those rumors were true. Suddenly, he smiled and asked me.
Miss Chen, are you willing?
I nodded. Naturally, I am willing. He smiled.
Then please come with me, Miss Chen, to ask my aunt, the Empress Dowager, to bestow this marriage.
I nodded. Just as we were about to leave, Xiao Cong caught up with us. He grabbed my sleeve.
Chen Huaisu, I regret it. I will have Qinghe give up the position of Crown Princess to you. How about that?
I yanked my sleeve back forcefully, losing his balance. Xiao Cong fell to the ground. I turned around and walked side by side with Fu Yunmiao toward the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager narrowed her eyes, looking me up and down. She smiled and said,
My nephew here is already 23, and he's still unmarried. Now that he finally intends to marry, I shall bestow this marriage upon you immediately.
Xiao Cong's face turned deathly pale on the spot. The wedding date was set for 10 days later, which happened to be the very day of Xiao Cong and Qinghe's wedding. Our bridal procession crossed paths with Xiao Cong's. To my surprise, he dismounted his horse, lifted the curtain of my bridal sedan, and, with reddened eyes, asked me in a hoarse voice,
Huaisu, don't marry him. Marry me instead, all right?
I looked up. No. His breathing instantly grew rapid.
Huaisu, I won't marry Qinghe anymore. My bridal sedan is empty, waiting for you. Are you still unwilling to forgive me?
He reached out to pull me. I placed my foot against him to block him. Your Highness, whom you marry is your own business. It has nothing to do with me. Please show some self-respect, Your Highness. His eyes cast downward, and he suddenly grabbed my ankle. The next moment, he was struck away by Fu Yunmiao's palm.
Your Highness, this is my wife. Please show some self-respect, Your Highness.
Xiao Cong stumbled back several steps, his boots scraping harshly against the stone pavement. The veins on his wrists bulged with tension. Fu Yunmiao's words had struck his sore spot, causing him to lose all face. His resentment instantly turned into pure hostility. With a gust of wind, he threw a punch straight at Fu Yunmiao's face. As the force of the punch swept past, even the surrounding air seemed to tremble. Fu Yunmiao's eyes darkened, his aloof demeanor instantly sharpening into a cold edge. He raised his arm slightly, his palm firmly catching the incoming punch. His fingers precisely pressed down on the pressure point of Xiao Cong's wrist. With a slight squeeze, the veins on Xiao Cong's forehead bulged from the pain, leaving half of his arm completely numb and weak. As he struggled to break free, his chest heaved violently. He gnashed his teeth and roared, his voice cracking with rage.
Lord Fu, Chen Huaisu was supposed to be my wife. I was the one who first took a liking to her at the palace banquet. I was the one who first had the promise with her at the plum garden. You are merely picking up what I discarded. Could it be that Lord Fu has a preference for taking what others do not want?
A flash of anger instantly crossed Fu Yunmiao's dark eyes. His fists slowly clenched inside his sleeves, and the pressure radiating from him was so low that the onlookers began to retreat in fear. Sitting inside the bridal sedan, I reached through the curtain and gently tugged at the hem of his robe. When he looked down at me, the hostility in his eyes instantly vanished, turning into a pool of gentle spring water. He gently patted the back of my hand to reassure me. When he turned back to look at Xiao Cong, his tone was as cold as ice.
Your Highness, at the palace banquet that day, it was you who insisted on marrying Huaizu's maid, Qinghe, personally promising her a lifetime as an inseparable couple to back out on the day of the wedding. is a lack of benevolence. As the crown prince of the nation, to snatch another official's wife in the middle of the street, disregarding rights and laws, and disrupting a wedding is a lack of righteousness. How can someone who lacks both benevolence and righteousness inherit the throne in the future and rule over the people of the world?
He paused, his gaze sweeping over the growing crowd of onlookers, and deliberately raised his voice a bit so that every street and alley could hear him clearly.
Furthermore, my marriage to Huaisu was personally decreed by the Empress Dowager. The 3 letters and 6 rights, and the matchmaker's words are all fully prepared. It is perfectly legitimate. How can your highness claim she is something you discarded by making such a scene? Does your highness intend to defy the Empress Dowager's decree and show contempt for imperial authority?
As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Cong's face turned as dark as ink. He wanted to argue, but could not utter a single word, feeling only a mass of foul air blocked in his chest, unable to go up or down. The murmurs of the surrounding crowd grew louder and louder, every word accusing him of going back on his word and lacking moral character. Those words were like needles, piercing into his proud heart.
I didn't expect the crown prince to be this kind of person. First he insisted on marrying a maid, and now he is snatching the Grand Tutor's wife. He even dares to block a marriage decreed by the Empress Dowager. His position as crown princess is probably no longer secure. Miss Chen is both talented and beautiful. Marrying the Grand Tutor is indeed a perfect match. The crown prince is not worthy of her at all. He must have been blind to choose a maid. I heard that maid actually stole Miss Chen's poetry. The crown prince was kept in the dark. Now that he has realized it, he is back to pester Miss Chen. How outrageous.
These words drifted into Xiao Cong's ears one by one. Shame turned into rage, and he suddenly raised his hand, trying to rush forward again to grab me. Fu Yunmiao's eyes went cold, and he shoved Xiao Cong away. Xiao Cong was already in a state of utter confusion, his footing unsteady. With this shove, he stumbled back several steps, nearly falling to the ground. Several strands of his hair fell loose from his topknot, leaving him in a wretched state. Fu Yunmiao looked at him no longer. He turned to the sedan bearers and commanded in a deep voice,
"Raise the sedan. Do not delay the auspicious hour."
The sedan bearers quickly complied, answering in unison. Just as they were about to lift the sedan and set off, a frail figure suddenly rushed out from the crowd, like a leaf swept down by a wild wind, stumbling and running to the front of the bridal sedan. With a thud, she fell to her knees. The blue stone road was hard and cold. The moment her knees struck it, her face instantly turned pale, her whole body trembling with pain. Yet she endured the pain, crawling on her knees step by step toward me. Her skirt was stained gray by the dust on the ground, her hair was disheveled, and she wept like a rain-drenched pear blossom.
Miss, Qinghe knows she was wrong. I beg you, miss, leave Qinghe away to survive. I beg for your mercy, miss.
Today was supposed to be the day of her grand wedding to the crown prince. Yet, she did not look like a bride in the slightest. She wore no bright red bridal gown, nor any jewelry or hairpins. She wore only a thin, washed-out maid's outfit. The fabric was coarse, without even a single trace of embroidery. The cuffs were even frayed and worn. Her hair was disheveled, without a speck of makeup on her face, and there were still lingering bruises around the corners of her eyes. She was a far cry from the person at the art exhibition a few days ago, who wore a gold-embroidered robe and deliberately showed off her charm, drawing the admiring gazes of the scholars. She was as wretched as someone who had lost all support, sitting in the bridal sedan. I looked down at her, feeling not a shred of pity in my heart, only a cold indifference. In our past life, she stole my poetry, snatched my marriage, ruined my reputation, and caused the destruction of my entire clan. In this life, she remained unrepentant, clinging to the crown prince and plotting against me. Ending up in this state today is entirely of her own making. She has no one else to blame. Seeing that, I remained silent. Qinghe wept even more bitterly, kowtowing onto the stone road over and over again. The dull thuds made the surrounding onlookers frown, and soon, a faint bruise appeared on her forehead, making her look utterly miserable. She repented before me again and again, her voice so hoarse it was barely audible.
My lady, I shouldn't have seduced His Highness, the Crown Prince. I shouldn't have coveted the position of Crown Princess. I shouldn't have stolen your poetry, nor should I have pretended to be the one matching verses with the Crown Prince at Yimei Garden. I was wrong. I was truly wrong.
She suddenly raised her head, a flash of resentment in her eyes, which was quickly masked by fear again, as she cried out.
But the Crown Prince is not human. At first, he coaxed me with sweet words, saying he would marry me as his Crown Princess and treat me well for the rest of his life. But after he became intimate with me, he immediately changed his mind. Once he learned that I was illiterate, had no real talent, and couldn't even memorize a single complete poem, he grew cold toward me in every way. He kept his distance from me at night and refused to see me during the day. To this day, He has not given me any official status. I am now living like a ghost, and it is all because of him.
As soon as Qinghe finished speaking, the onlookers instantly erupted into a commotion. The quiet whispers turned into loud discussions, every word criticizing the crown prince's improper behavior. The esteemed crown prince of a nation actually seduced a maidservant and then abandoned her. This is simply too much.
He clearly promised marriage, yet he went back on his word. Isn't this outright deception? His Majesty has always governed the realm with benevolence and virtue. With the crown prince committing such acts, how can he command the respect of the people in the future?
Even a maidservant's reputation is still her reputation. The crown prince's actions are truly improper. I heard the crown prince previously claimed he wanted one love for a lifetime. Yet he turned his back so quickly. How fickle and heartless.
Some felt that, as the heir to the throne, it was no big deal for him to be intimate with a maidservant, but far more people condemned his corrupt character. And, in gratitude, Qinghe knelt helplessly on the ground, looking around with tearful eyes. She had thought her tearful plea would win sympathy and prompt someone to speak up for her, but she forgot that this world has always favored the high and trampled on the low. She was now merely an abandoned maidservant of the crown prince, with no family standing and no background. No one would care about her grievances, and no one would stand up for her. Everyone merely treated her as the laughingstock of a farce. Xiao Cong stood to the side, from breaking out in a cold sweat initially with a panicked expression to becoming completely shameless under everyone's criticism. It took less than a moment. He squinted down at Qinghe, who was kneeling on the ground, his gaze cold and harsh, completely devoid of the tenderness from just a few days ago. His tone was as indifferent as if he were speaking of a stranger.
You are nothing but a lowly maid from the prime minister's estate. You dared to steal a few lines of poetry from your young mistress, impersonate her in the plum garden, and toy with my feelings. I was merely deceived by you before. Now that the truth has come to light, I naturally will not keep you around any longer.
He raised his hand to summon the guards beside him and said coldly,
Guards, take this deceitful and depraved maid to the magistrate's office immediately, to be dealt with according to the law. Have the prefect of the capital thoroughly investigate how she stole her mistress's poetry and deceived the crown prince.
Hearing this, Qinghe's face instantly turned as pale as paper. She knew that once she was sent to the magistrate's office with her crimes of stealing poetry and deceiving the crown prince, she would at least be flogged and exiled, or at worst, beaten to death on the spot, and even her family would be implicated. She suddenly lunged forward, tightly grabbing the hem of my bridal gown, and pleaded through bitter tears.
My lady, please save Qinghe. My life is so bitter. I don't want to be sent to the magistrate. For the sake of our past bond as mistress and servant, please save me just this once. I will work like a horse to repay you in the future, serving you tea and water, doing your laundry, and cooking.
I frowned, feeling completely unmoved, and spoke flatly. Our bond as mistress and servant was already severed when you stole my poetry, schemed against me, and tried to cling to the crown prince. Already broken. The end you meet today is the path you chose for yourself. It has nothing to do with me. Seeing that I refused to help, Xiao Cong immediately ordered the guards to pull Qinghe away. 2 guards stepped forward and grabbed Qinghe by the arms. Qinghe struggled to break free, a glint of desperate madness flashing in her eyes. Suddenly, she lunged with all her might, broke free from the guard's grip, and threw herself at Xiao Cong like a madwoman, viciously tearing at his hair and face, screaming at the top of her lungs.
Xiao Cong, you ungrateful heartbreaker. I'll fight you to the death. If I can't have a good life, you won't either. You ruined me. I will make you pay.
No one expected that a seemingly weak young woman could burst forth with such immense strength at this moment. Her nails dug deep into Xiao Cong's flesh, tearing out several clumps of his hair and scratching his face red, leaving several bloody gashes. The 2 of them grappled together on the street, their clothes in disarray and their hair disheveled. Xiao Cong's royal robes were pulled askew, while Qinghe's plain clothes were torn to shreds, revealing the bruises on her shoulders. 3 or 4 people came up to pull them apart, but they were all pushed back by Qinghe's frantic strength. She was like a maddened beast, fighting desperately without regard for her life. For a moment, the street was filled with wailing and cries of pain. Xiao Cong was pinned to the ground by Qinghe, looking utterly pathetic as he roared,
Get over here, someone. Get this maid off of me. Quickly, dispose of her.
Qinghe seemed to be making one last desperate stand. Her eyes were bloodshot as she bit down hard on Xiao Cong's ear. Xiao Cong let out a shrill, agonizing shriek, trembling all over from the excruciating pain. With bloodshot eyes, he clutched his ear and roared hysterically, his voice distorted by the agony.
Beat her with staves. Beat this maidservant with staves for me. Beat her with canes immediately. Drag her away. Punish her severely.
Today is my wedding day. It is not auspicious to shed blood. I looked up at Fu Yunmiao beside me, with a hint of imperceptible anxiety in my eyes. Fu Yunmiao understood my thoughts, and immediately waved his hand, ordering several strong guards from the Grand Preceptor's manor to step forward, and forcefully pulled the two apart as they grappled with each other. The guards were all highly trained martial artists. They acted with precision and strength, finally subduing the frenzied Qinghe, but disheveled. But how could Qinghe, covered in blood and with disheveled hair, be willing to stay quiet? With her arms held by the guards, she kept kicking and thrashing her feet toward Xiao Cong, still cursing and swearing non-stop, while repeatedly crying and begging me for mercy. Her voice was so hoarse it was barely audible, every single word laced with despair. Fu Yunmiao frowned slightly, unwilling to let this sordid affair ruin my wedding. He immediately ordered his men to take Qinghe away and keep her under close watch, forbidding her from making any more scenes to disturb us. Then, gently supporting my arm, he said softly,
My lady, do not fear. I am here. Leave everything to me. I won't let anyone ruin your good mood.
I nodded, and with his support, I stepped into the bridal sedan chair, still feeling somewhat uneasy in my heart. I couldn't help but lift a corner of the curtain. I saw him summon the accompanying imperial physician, ordering men to carry the crown prince away for treatment who had fainted from the pain, and commanding the guards to disperse the onlookers and maintain order on the streets. His movements were calm and unhurried, composed and reliable. The unease in my heart gradually dissipated. By the time the bridal sedan chair smoothly entered the Grand Tutor's manor, we had already missed the originally scheduled auspicious hour. The guests in the manor were all waiting patiently. Seeing me step out of the sedan chair, they stepped forward one after another to offer their congratulations, praising us as a perfect match of talent and beauty, a match made in heaven. Fu Yunmiao held my hand tightly, his palm warm and strong. He whispered,
It matters not, as long as I am with you, my lady. Every single moment is an auspicious hour. For me, meeting you is the best moment of my life.
During the wedding ceremony, he shielded me with the utmost care the entire time, afraid I would be jostled by the crowd or trip over my skirt. Every single gesture was incredibly gentle. When it came time to toast, he blocked all the wine for me, smiling as he told everyone,
My wife cannot hold her liquor. I shall drink on her behalf. Please do not take offense, everyone.
On our wedding night, the red candles burned brightly, and the bridal veil was gently lifted. I sat by the bedside, feeling somewhat annoyed. What should have been a perfect wedding day had been completely ruined by Xiao Cong and Qinghe. We had even missed the auspicious hour. It was truly frustrating, thinking of the despair on my wedding night in my past life. Although I have found a good husband in this life, we were still disturbed by those wicked people, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of gloom in my heart. Fu Yunmiao walked over, carrying 2 cups of nuptial wine, sat down beside me, and looking at my slightly furrowed brow, he couldn't help but reach out and gently scratch the tip of my nose, his tone full of doting affection.
What is troubling you so, my lady? Could it be that you find your husband's Grand Preceptor estate not grand enough, or do you feel today's events ruin the mood?
I looked up at him. He had broad shoulders, a slender waist, sharp brows, and bright starry eyes. The candlelight reflected on his face, highlighting his well-defined features. He was so handsome that I couldn't look away. For a moment, I was completely dazed. The complaints that had been on the tip of my tongue suddenly felt impossible to utter, perhaps seeing through my thoughts at a glance. He gently wrapped his arm around me and pulled me into his embrace. His chest was broad and warm, carrying a faint scent of ink and bamboo, which brought a deep sense of peace. His voice was incredibly gentle as he spoke.
To be united in marriage with you, my lady, is the greatest blessing of my life. No matter what time we perform the ceremony, and whether we miss the auspicious hour or not, to me, it is the best of days. Those annoying people and matters are already in the past. From now on, I will protect you. No one will ever dare to bully you again.
He gently lifted my chin, gazing at me with burning intensity, his eyes filled with deep affection.
With you by my side, my lady, it is more than enough.
The red candles flickered. The night was tender, and love ran deep. When I woke up in the morning, the pillow beside me was already empty. The bedding still carried his lingering scent, a faint aroma of ink and bamboo, warm and clean. I got up and called for my personal maid, Hongyao, to come in and help me dress. Hongyao was a maid I had brought over from the Chen family. She was fiercely loyal and highly attentive. Holding a wooden comb, she gently brushed my long hair while chattering away, her tone filled with delight.
My lady, you have no idea. The Grand Preceptor got up before dawn this morning. He heard that you love the juju paste cakes from that old shop at the east end of the street. They only make 50 portions a day, and they sell out if you're late. He personally rode out of the city to buy them, without even taking the time to change out of his court robes. He said he wanted you to have the freshest pastries the moment you woke up. All the servants in the estate are saying that the Grand Preceptor truly dotes on you to his very core.
Listening to her, a subtle smile played on my lips, and a sweet warmth welled up in my heart. In my past life, no one had ever cherished me like this. Xiao Cong only ever saw Qinghe as grievances and never cared about my preferences. But now, Fu Yunmiao remembered a casual preference of mine, personally making the trip for me. This kind of devotion was more precious than any wealth or honor. My mind kept searching for any traces of a past with Fu Yunmiao. I thought hard for a long time, but I still couldn't find any memory of us ever crossing paths. He felt so unfamiliar, yet spending time with him brought a strange sense of peace, as if we were always meant to be together like this. Before long, the door was gently pushed open. Fu Yunmiao walked in with hurried steps, fine beads of sweat on his forehead. His hem was damp with morning dew, and there was mud on his boots. He had clearly ridden back in a great hurry, and even his breathing was slightly rushed. At that moment, having nothing else to do, I was flipping through some storybooks in his study. His study was neat and elegant, filled with the scent of ink. The bookshelves were lined with classics and histories, and paintings by famous artists hung on the walls. I casually picked up a book and happened upon a small pink booklet with a colorful cover. Judging by its binding, I figured it must be one of those romance novels about scholars and beauties that I like. Just as I was about to open it and look inside, he suddenly took a large stride to my side. He quickly placed his palm over the booklet, his movement urgent and tinged with a hint of panic. Not understanding why, I turned around and glanced at him. The Grand Preceptor, who was always as cool and elegant as jade, and ever calm and composed, had suddenly blushed across half his face at this moment. The tips of his ears flushed red as well. He actually looked somewhat adorable, a far cry from his usual solemn and serious self. My heart skipped a beat. Lowering my gaze, I squinted at the pink booklet in his hand, and my mind couldn't help but wander. Could this booklet not be a romance novel about scholars and beauties, but rather some private, intimate illustrations? Thinking back to his gentleness and consideration last night, I felt more and more certain that this was likely the case. My cheeks grew hot of their own accord. Pretending not to care, I clapped my hands, stepped aside, and gave him a sweet smile. "You're back so soon, Grand Preceptor. Where is the juju paste cake? I've been waiting for it." He froze for a moment, but quickly reacted. With one hand, he held out the food box he was carrying, presenting the juju paste cake to me. Steam was still rising from the food box, carrying a delightful aroma. With his other hand, his fingers cautiously crept onto the booklet, and finger by finger, he slowly moved the booklet behind his back to hide it. His eyes darted around, not daring to meet my gaze, looking just like a young boy caught hiding something. I took the juju paste cake, picked up a piece, and took a bite. It was soft, sweet, dense, but not greasy. It was indeed a pastry fresh out of the oven this morning. Fresh and delicious. Exactly my favorite taste. Holding the juju paste cake, I slowly walked around his study, looking around and admiring the furnishings in the room. Suddenly, my attention was drawn to a portrait of a lady hanging on the wall. The painting was exquisitely framed and hung right in the center of the main wall. Clearly an item he treasured deeply. The woman in the portrait had curved eyes, a delicate nose, and bright red lips. Her features bore a striking resemblance to mine. She was sitting on a green stone by a stream to enjoy the cool air, her skirt draping gently, holding a branch of green plums in her hand, smiling gently and elegantly, her eyes filled with the lively spirit of a young girl. And standing in the stream was a youth clad in snow-white robes, wearing a bamboo hat that covered half his face, holding a fishing rod. He was fishing, yet his gaze was fixed longingly on the woman by the stream, his eyes filled with tenderness, even his fishing movements slowing down a bit. Looking at this painting, a long-buried memory suddenly flooded my mind. So clear, it felt as though it had happened just yesterday. I remembered. One midsummer year, my father took me back to our old family home in the countryside of Qinghe to escape the heat. I disliked the intense heat, so every day I liked to go to the stream outside the village to enjoy the cool air and play in the water. The stream was lined with lush trees, and the water was crystal clear. It was my favorite place during the summer. At that time, there was a youth wearing a bamboo hat who would arrive by the stream on time every day. He seemed to be fishing, but in truth, he was always composing poetry and matching verses with me, discussing the past and present, and we got along wonderfully. His voice was gentle and warm, and he was highly knowledgeable, yet he never would take off his bamboo hat. hat. I simply took him for a talented scholar living in seclusion in the countryside, and never thought much of it. Pointing at the portrait, I spoke in a daze, my voice carrying a hint of disbelief, my fingertips trembling slightly. You are the one from the stream in Qinghe back then, the youth who wore the bamboo hat. Seeing that I recognized him, Fu Yunmiao no longer hid it. He covered half of his face with the booklet, revealing only a pair of clear, dark eyes, filled with a hint of amusement. He said softly,
"Do I not look like him? I've painted you countless times, yet I always feel I cannot capture even half of your grace."
"You do. You look so much like him." I burst into laughter, walked up to him, and casually took the hidden booklet from his hand. I stared at him intently, my tone filled with curiosity. "So it was you, all along. I actually never recognized you. Why did you wear a bamboo hat back then? And even cover your face with a veil? I always thought you just disliked seeing people. So there was another reason." He smiled warmly, his cheeks flushed slightly, and he said with some embarrassment,
"I was young back then. The summer was hot and dry, and my body was full of internal heat. My face broke out in many red pimples. I looked so unsightly. I was afraid of scaring you, and also feared you would dislike me and refuse to recite poetry with me. I had no choice but to wear the veil. Every day, I looked forward to seeing you by the stream. Yet, I was terrified you would find me repulsive if you saw my face, so I had to cover it up."
I toyed with the booklet in my hand, swinging it back and forth, and pursed my lips thoughtfully. So that was why. To think he had hidden his face for such a reason. A deeper warmth welled up in my heart. It turned out that many years ago, he had already placed me in his heart, silently watching over me. This profound affection was higher than the mountains, and deeper than the sea. Suddenly, a playful urge to tease him came over me. I set down the tray of juju paste cakes, turned my back to him, and abruptly flipped open the booklet in my hand. I thought it would be a private sketchbook, but once I opened it, I froze instantly. My heart rate suddenly quickened. Inside the booklet, every single page was a portrait of me. There was nothing inappropriate. They were all of my everyday self, smiling or frowning, sleeping or awake, riding a horse through the streets, reciting poetry by the window, sitting quietly by the stream, leaning over a desk to write, bowing my head to play the zither, or looking up at the clouds. Every single one was lifelike, drawn with gentle and delicate brushstrokes that captured my likeness to perfection. Even the strands of hair and the details of my eyes were rendered with precision. One look was enough to know he had painted them with great care over a long time, harboring endless deep affection. Among these portraits, there was me by the stream in Qinghe, me at the palace banquet, me composing poetry at the art exhibition, and me smiling softly with my head bowed in daily life. Every single piece held his feelings for me. After flipping through just a few pages, my face was already as red as could be. My heart raced, my cheeks burned, and I was so embarrassed that I didn't know what to do. I could barely hold the booklet steady in my hand. Suddenly, a warm, large hand reached down from above and swiftly snatched the booklet away with a whoosh. I turned around and met his eyes. Both of our faces were flushed red, our throats tight and dry. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. The air was thick with an ambiguous tension. We both spoke at the exact same time and stopped simultaneously. The atmosphere grew even more tender and lingering. In the end, I was the first to grow shy. I lifted my skirt, wanting to turn and hide. Suddenly, around my waist, a pair of warm, powerful hands held me tightly. His hot breath brushed against my ear, carrying the faint scent of juju paste cakes, deep and gentle, with a hint of hoarseness.
"Don't go, Huaisu. Don't hide. I have been drawing you for many years. From Qinghe to the capital, I have always been drawing you. I only wanted to engrave your image in my heart."
I turned around. Just as I was about to speak, a gentle, lingering kiss silenced the words I had yet to say. It carried years of longing and waiting. I buried myself in his embrace and asked softly, "Fu Yunmiao, did you like me from very early on? Did it start back then by the stream in Qinghe?" He nodded, resting his chin on the top of my head. His voice was gentle yet firm. "Yes."
"Since a very, very long time ago. From the first time I saw you by the stream, heard you reciting poetry, and saw the way you smiled, my heart was moved. For all these years, I have always remembered you, waiting for the day when I could stand by your side openly, to protect you completely, and never let you suffer the slightest grievance. I studied hard to achieve academic honors, and rise step by step to the position of Grand Tutor, just to be worthy of you, and to have the power to protect you."
During those few days, the two of us stayed together in the Grand Tutor's estate, never stepping foot outside, together from morning till night. He accompanied me in reciting poetry and painting, brewed tea, and bought pastries for me, taught me to play the qin, took me to stroll in the estate's gardens, and told me interesting stories from the imperial court. He was gentle, considerate, and meticulously attentive. Our days were sweet and peaceful. On the day of the bride's return visit to her family, he carefully carried me down, personally helped me dress and do my makeup, put the most exquisite pearl hairpin in my hair, helped me change into my most magnificent gown, and held my hand as we returned to the Chen family estate. On this day, the entire Chen household was decorated with lanterns and banners, filled with a festive atmosphere. When father and mother saw me, their eyes welled with tears. They held my hand, giving me endless advice, seeing how Fu Yunmiao cherished and protected me in every way. The heavy stone hanging in their hearts finally fell. Mother took Fu Yunmiao's hand and said with a choked voice,
"Grand Tutor, we entrust our Huaisu to you. You must treat her well."
Fu Yunmiao bowed solemnly, his tone sincere.
Please rest assured, father-in-law and mother-in-law, I will use my entire life to protect Huaisu and never let her suffer the slightest grievance.
During the banquet, the family elders praised me one after another for marrying a good man, saying I was blessed, and that the hardships of my past life had turned into the blessings of this life. As I listened, my heart was filled with gratitude. Living this life over again, I had finally escaped the nightmare and found such a good husband. In the days after our marriage, Fu Yunmiao spoiled me to the bone, putting me first in everything and never letting me suffer the slightest grievance. Every day after leaving the court, he would return to the estate immediately to accompany me, declining all unnecessary social engagements, just to have dinner with me. In less than a month, the physician summoned to the estate felt my pulse and joyfully informed me I was already pregnant.
Madam's pulse is stable and the fetus is strong. This is a blessed child.
Upon hearing this news, Fu Yunmiao was even more excited than I was. He held me tightly, his eyes turning slightly red. He immediately ordered the entire household to take the utmost care of me. My daily meals were meticulously planned, consisting entirely of my favorite dishes. When we attended banquets at the palace, he always sat right by my side, never leaving me for a moment. He wouldn't let me touch a single drop of alcohol, nor would he let me eat any raw or cold foods. He watched over me with absolute vigilance. When some concubines tried to strike up a conversation to probe into my background, he quietly deflected them all, shielding me behind him. Sitting at the banquet, I couldn't fully enjoy myself, yet my heart was filled with sweetness, and I obediently went along with his arrangements. During the banquet, the emperor sent someone to invite him to discuss important state affairs. As he left his seat, he did not forget to repeatedly instruct the maids and older female servants nearby.
Take good care of my wife. Do not let her suffer the slightest discomfort.
He looked back with every step, his eyes full of reluctance to leave, drawing envious glances from the concubines at the banquet, who envied me for having such a fine husband. After he left, I sat at the banquet, feeling utterly bored, until I finally spotted Xiao Cong in the crowd, having not seen him for only a month. He looked as if he had aged several years. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his face was haggard and sallow, devoid of any color. His cheeks were sunken. He looked completely listless. The most eye-catching thing was his bitten ear. The bandages had already been removed, leaving a prominent bite mark that made half of his face look distorted. He looked completely grotesque, lacking any of his former dignity as the crown prince, resembling someone who had lost all support. Regarding his affairs, I had heard quite a lot over the past month. The most talked about event was how Qinghe had bitten his ear on their wedding day, making him the laughingstock of the entire capital. People in every street and alley were gossiping about him. The emperor grew increasingly disappointed in him, and the court ministers submitted memorials, one after another, requesting the installation of a new heir. Now, there was already an intention to name the third prince as the heir apparent. His position as crown prince was in jeopardy, liable to be deposed at any moment. Regarding this matter, he must have known as well. Yet he remained unrepentant, staring at me with a sinister gaze, filled with resentment and bitterness, as if I were the source of all his misfortunes. But his affairs no longer had anything to do with me. I was now the Grand Tutor's wife, carrying his child in my womb. My life was stable and happy, and I had long since severed all ties with him. Everything about him had nothing to do with me. I turned my head away, no longer looking at him. Suddenly, my stomach felt a bit uneasy, surging with a wave of nausea. The morning sickness hit me, making my face turn pale. I stood up, intending to go to the imperial garden for some fresh air and to clear my head. To my surprise, just as I walked under the hexagonal palace lanterns in the imperial garden, I still ran into Xiao Cong, who was waiting there. He had clearly been waiting for me there on purpose, having stood there for a long time. The warm light of the hexagonal palace lanterns fell upon him, yet it could not illuminate the gloom in his eyes. It was a kind of obsession bordering on madness sadness. He looked at me with a heavy gaze, approaching me step by step. His steps were unsteady, and his voice was raspy and obsessive.
Chen Huaisu, I regret it. From the moment you married Fu Yunmiao, I regretted it. I regret it day and night. If you are willing to divorce Fu Yunmiao, I will let bygones be bygones and marry you grandly as my crown princess. In the future, you will be the empress, mother to the entire realm. As for the Grand Tutor, after I ascend the throne, I will marry the most favored princess to him and bestow upon him supreme wealth and honor to make it up to him all right.
He stopped in his tracks, staring at me intently, his tone carrying a hint of coercion, his eyes wild.
Huaisu, are you willing to return to my side? Only you are worthy of me. Only you are my crown princess. That Qinghe is just a maid. I have never truly loved her.
He closed in on me, step by step, his eyes obsessive and crazed. I shielded my slightly protruding lower abdomen and retreated step by step. It seemed he still did not realize his current situation, that he was already in imminent danger, deserted by all. Yet he was still here indulging in wishful thinking, believing I would turn back. I stopped walking, looked up at him. My tone was calm and indifferent. Your Highness, I am now the Grand Tutor's wife in name and in fact, and I am already carrying the Grand Tutor's child. My husband and I are deeply in love. I ask that your Highness seek another lady and entangle yourself with me no longer. Let us each live our own lives. The moment the words left my mouth, his eyes widened, staring at my abdomen, his expression shifting from disbelief to bone-chilling cold. His tone suddenly became fierce.
You are pregnant with Fu Yunmiao's child. How is that possible? In such a short time, how could you possibly be carrying his child? You are mine. Without my permission, you are not allowed to carry anyone else's child.
I nodded calmly. My tone was firm. It is absolutely true, Your Highness. Accept reality. He seemed to be driven mad by the sting and lunged forward with a sudden stride, his eyes like an asura climbing out of hell, filled with malevolence. He reached out abruptly and choked me by the neck, squeezing so hard that I instantly couldn't breathe, my face turning flushed red.
Chen Huaisu, without my consent, how dare you carry another man's child?
He roared frantically, his eyes bloodshot, his face distorted.
You are mine. You can only be mine. I do not allow this. I will absolutely never allow this.
My breathing was blocked, my face flushed red, as I desperately slapped at his hands, croaking out at him, Xiao Cong, you are crazy. Let go of me. Let go. The baby. My baby. But Xiao Cong seemed not to hear me at all. He looked at me, smiling sinisterly, his tone vicious.
I will not allow you to carry another man's child. Forget Fu Yunmiao. I will treat you well. Return to my side. Even if something happens to you, you will still belong to me.
As he spoke, he released his grip on my neck, but because I had lost my balance, I had nothing to support me and fell backward. I was about to fall into the freezing lake. It was the dead of winter, and the weather was freezing cold. If I really fell into the water, not only would I lose the baby in my womb, but I would also likely lose my own life. 2 lives would be gone. Panicking, I had a sudden idea. I instantly grabbed his hands and begged for mercy, pretending to be terrified. My voice was trembling and filled with tears. Xiao Cong, I promise you, I will get a divorce. I will return to your side. Please spare my child. Please don't let me fall into the water. The child is innocent. He hasn't even seen the world yet. Hearing this, a flash of smugness instantly crossed his eyes, and he let out a chilling laugh.
Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? Come back to me, obediently, and I will cherish you and spoil you, making you the most honorable crown princess. As long as you get rid of this child, I will forgive you.
Summoning my courage, I took advantage of his lowered guard and gave him a hard push forward, raising my voice. I pretended to be submissive. Fine, I won't keep this child. Order someone to bring me a bowl of abortion medicine right now. I will drink it right in front of you. And never go back on my word. He nodded in satisfaction, a ruthless gleam flashing in his eyes. He immediately ordered the palace servant beside him.
Go fetch the abortion medicine at once. Hurry, do not delay.
Before long, a young maid walked over with quick, small steps, her head bowed as she carried a bowl of pitch-black liquid medicine. The medicine emitted a bitter, foul odor that made me want to gag. Residue from the herbs still clung to the rim of the bowl. Xiao Cong took the bowl and held it out to me. His eyes were dark and sinister, and his his voice sounded like a vengeful ghost claiming a life.
Drink it. I will watch you drink it. Once you finish, you will still be mine. I will take you back to the Eastern Palace and never let you see Fu Yunmiao again.
Holding the bowl of medicine, I knit my brows tightly, my heart turning completely cold. I looked around and noticed the swaying shadows of the trees in the imperial garden. It was dead silent, with not a single palace servant in sight. Xiao Cong must have dismissed all the servants in the area before he arrived, just to force me to submit. No one could save me. If I didn't drink it, I wouldn't be able to save the child in my womb. If I did drink it, I might not live to see Fu Yunmiao again. 2 lives would be lost. I was trapped in a desperate situation, my heart filled with despair. Yet, I refused to resign myself to this fate. I had fought so hard to live a second life, and finally found happiness. I couldn't let it end like this. Taking a deep breath, I was about to pretend to drink the medicine, to look for a chance to escape, when a flash of bright, cold light suddenly swept past the bottom of the bowl. Before I could even react, a dagger was violently plunged into Xiao Cong's chest. Fresh blood gushed from his chest, staining his robes red. It also splashed onto the hem of my skirt, a shocking and gruesome sight. My hands lost their grip instantly, and the medicine bowl shattered on the ground with a loud clang. The liquid spilled everywhere, the dark brown stains seeping into the soil. My eyes widened in shock, covering my mouth and nose. I began to dry heave violently, my entire body trembling. Staring at the scene before me, I was scared out of my wits, my legs turning to jelly. Xiao Cong looked down at the dagger in his chest, turning around slowly, as stiffly as if he had turned to stone. A familiar yet hideous face gradually appeared from behind him. It was Qinghe. She had somehow escaped from where she was being held. Her face had been ruined, with a sharp weapon, crisscrossed with deep scars across her cheeks, some so deep that bone was visible. Her hands were also scarred, red and festering, looking utterly terrifying. Yet, she didn't seem to care at all, bursting into a wild laughter. Her laughter was shrill and desperate, filled with the thrill of revenge. She suddenly yanked the dagger viciously out of Xiao Cong's body. Her laughter grew even more frenzied.
Your Highness, you sent people to harm me, had me mistreated, trampled me into the dirt, and left me covered in wounds. You probably never expected that after I spent so long pleasing others, someone would finally agree to smuggle me into the palace. I endured all that humiliation just for today, just to make you pay the price. What you owe me, I want you to repay tenfold today. You ruined me and made my life a living hell. So, I will make sure you get the punishment you deserve.
Xiao Cong's eyes were filled with shock and resentment. He staggered, trying to raise his hand to strike Qinghe, but due to excessive blood loss, he had no strength left. His arm fell back down halfway through the air. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed to the ground. Just then, a familiar figure rushed over with long strides. It was Fu Yunmiao. He had arrived, though I didn't know when. Clearly, realizing I had been gone for too long, he had grown anxious and searched for me all the way here. Seeing my disheveled and terrified state, his face turned pale. His gaze instantly became sharp and fierce. He kicked Xiao Cong hard, sending him crashing to the ground, then quickly rushed to my side, pulling me tightly into his embrace. His voice trembled with lingering fear.
Huaisu, are you all right? Are you hurt? Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm sorry.
My racing heart slowly began to calm. Leaning into his warm embrace, I clutched his robes tightly and shook my head. My voice trembled, choked with tears. I'm fine. The baby is fine too. Thank goodness you came. I pointed at Xiao Cong, who was lying on the ground, my voice shaking. He is not going to make it. Quick, call the imperial physicians to save him. We can't let anything happen to him in the palace, or it will cause trouble. Fu Yunmiao looked down at the shattered medicine bowl on the ground, then glanced at the frenzied Qinghe, his eyes cold and sharp. He only said indifferently,
Do you want to go down with him? Or do you want him to die so you can live in peace? Choose. Now that you've chosen, I will handle the rest.
Qinghe wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She smiled indifferently, a smile of utter despair, tinged with a reckless, desperate ferocity.
If you want him to meet his end, then I shall meet mine right alongside him. I have long been tired of living. After all the suffering I endured in the palace, it is better to end it all with death.
Fu Yunmiao let out a cold snort and offered one final condition.
If you choose to meet your end with him, your family will be taken care of. They will never want for food or clothing, living out their lives in peace and safety. But if you choose to live, your family will pay for your crimes. They will be exiled to the frontier, never to return to the capital.
At the mention of her family, Qinghe's eyes instantly turned red. Tears rolled down her hideously scarred face. Her family was the only thing she cared about in this life. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, glanced at the freezing waters of the lake, and then looked down at Xiao Cong on the ground. Before the palace guards could arrive, she suddenly lunged lunged forward, grabbed the severely wounded Xiao Cong, and plunged with him into the deep, wintry lake. Xiao Cong had already lost too much blood and had no strength to struggle before he could even cry out for help. Qinghe forcefully held his head down, submerging him into the freezing water. After only a few splashes, all sound from him ceased completely. The surface of the water gradually grew still, leaving only ripples of blood slowly dispersing beneath the ice. When the emperor and empress rushed to the scene, they arrived just in time to witness this sight. The lake was calm, yet it concealed blood and despair. I leaned against Fu Yunmiao, my entire body cold, sighing with deep emotion. I lamented Qinghe's utter despair and sighed at how Xiao Cong had brought this upon himself. The grievances of their past lives and the entanglements of this lifetime had finally come to an end in such a tragic manner. As blood gradually rose to the surface of the lake, the empress stumbled back a few steps, her voice trembling and her face deathly pale.
Save them quickly. No matter what. You must pull the crown prince out.
The guards leaped into the water one after another. The bone-chilling water made even the guards shiver violently. Xiao Cong was eventually pulled out, though he still had a breath left in him. He was already on the verge of death. His body was freezing cold, and his face was blue and purple. But when Qinghe was pulled out, her body was already bloated and pale from the water, without a single trace of breath left. Her limbs were stiff, presenting a gruesome sight in death. The imperial physician stepped forward to examine her. After a moment, he stood up to report to the empress, his tone respectful yet tinged with regret.
Your Imperial Majesty, Qinghe was pregnant. It is 2 lives lost. The fetus was already 3 months old.
The empress gasped, covering her mouth. Her face turned pale, and a flash of disgust crossed her eyes. Without a shred of pity, she coldly ordered her attendants to discard the maid's body in the mass grave.
She deceived the crown prince. Her crime is heinous, and her death is well deserved.
After returning to our estate, I was so shaken that I felt weak and paralyzed. My mind was in a daze, and I had nightmares every night. My dreams were filled with fresh blood, the lake water, Xiao Cong's menacing face, and Qinghe's despair. Fu Yunmiao stayed by my side all night, never leaving me for a single moment. He held me gently, telling me stories of beautiful times and places from storybooks, and sharing the latest interesting news from the capital. He spoke softly to comfort me, dispelling the fear in my heart. He even specially invited eminent monks to chant sutras and pray for blessings in the manor, to keep me safe and protect the health of our unborn child. I stayed in bed for about 10 days, and he patiently accompanied me for those 10 days, putting aside all court affairs, never leaving my side day or night, gentle and considerate, taking care of my every need. Once my body had fully recovered and my mind had calmed down, I wanted to go out for a walk, to clear my head and rid myself of those lingering nightmares. Fu Yunmiao was worried, so he accompanied me himself, bringing guards along as we left the manor. Walking on the bustling streets, the atmosphere was incredibly lively. The people lived and worked in peace, with street vendors crying out and laughter echoing one after another, creating a scene of harmony and peace, completely different from the cold cruelty of the palace. As we reached a street corner, we suddenly saw a crowd gathered around, pointing at a hideous-looking beggar, mocking him, sneering at him, and throwing rotten vegetable leaves at him.
You claim to be the crown prince? Would the crown prince dress in such ragged clothes? Would the crown prince run to a beggar's den to fight with stray dogs for food? Stop dreaming. TSK. What a shameless beggar. If you dare pretend to be the crown prince again, watch out. We'll report you to the officials and have you arrested. Look at that huge bite mark on his ear. It is hideous, and he still dares to pretend to be the crown prince. It is absolutely laughable.
My body suddenly shuddered, my heart tightening. I instinctively looked toward the voices, and the beggar happened to look up at the same time. Our eyes met, and a chill ran down my spine, leaving me cold all over. If Hongyao hadn't supported me in time, I probably would have collapsed right onto the ground. Isn't that Xiao Cong? How did he end up in such a wretched state? His clothes were in tatters, his body covered in filth, emitting a foul stench. His face was covered in scars, and his ear was damaged. His face was contorted, and his hair was a messy nest of straw. He wore no shoes on his feet, which were covered in festering frostbite. He no longer possessed even a fraction of his former dignity as the crown prince, looking just like the lowliest of beggars, wantonly bullied and humiliated by others. It seemed the previous rumors were true. After he was saved and revived, not only was his face ruined, his appearance was completely completely ruined, and even his body suffered severe trauma, leaving him unable to father children and rendering him a useless man. I never expected that when Qinghe dragged him into the water, she had actually injured him beneath the waves, completely destroying any chance of him having heirs and leaving him an incomplete man. Now, even though the imperial physicians did their utmost to save his life, he could no longer hold the position of crown prince. He has completely lost the qualification to fight for the throne, becoming a disgrace to the imperial family. Only later did I hear that after he woke up, unwilling to lose everything, he secretly colluded with his faction to rebel, attempting to seize back power. After the plot was exposed, he was completely abandoned by the emperor, who issued an imperial decree deposing him from his position as crown prince and demoted to a commoner. When Xiao Cong saw me, his eyes instantly flared with a towering rage and resentment. He violently shoved aside the beggars around him. He stumbled and rushed toward me, screaming,
Chen Huaisu, you are the one who ruined me and brought me to this state. You and Fu Yunmiao conspired against me. I will make you pay the price. I will drag you down to hell with me.
He was covered in filth, suppressing the disgust in my heart. I slowly backed away, my gaze cold and devoid of any pity. I could never forget my past life, how he harmed my clan, bestowed poison upon me, and left my entire family's corpses in the wilderness, thrown into a mass grave, the piercing pain of watching them gnawed by wild beasts. That hatred was etched into my very bones, never to be forgotten in this lifetime. In this life, I would make him taste the exact pain of my past life. I raised my hand and summoned a few nearby beggars, tossing my purse to them. The silver clinked inside, enough to keep them well fed for a long time. I spoke coldly, my voice completely devoid of warmth. Take this money. It is enough for you to live like kings for a while. Do you see that beggar over there? Do not let him have a single full meal. Do not allow anyone to give him charity. Let him taste what true despair feels like. The beggars took the purse, exchanged knowing smiles, and nodded repeatedly. They turned to reply to me.
Rest assured, my lady, we will feast and drink well, but we will never share a bite with him. We will make his life a living hell.
I nodded in satisfaction. I waved my hand. Take him away. Throw him as far away as possible. Do not let me see him again. Never appear before me again. Before Xiao Cong could even touch the hem of my skirt, he was swarmed by the beggars, who dragged him away. Filled with resentment, he struggled frantically, screaming and shouting, his voice hoarse and full of malice, as he was carried into the distance.
Chen Huaisu, I will make sure you die a horrible death. Even if I have to live another life, I will make your entire family die with me. I will not let you off. I will definitely return for my revenge.
His voice grew fainter and fainter, until I could no longer hear it at all. Only then did I slowly compose myself, turning to lean into Fu Yunmiao's embrace. We continued to stroll and enjoy the bustling streets, my heart completely at peace. All that hatred and pain had finally vanished into thin air. 3 years later, the late emperor passed away. The third prince successfully ascended the throne as the new emperor, ushering in a new era. The court was clean and just, and the nation was peaceful and prosperous. Because of his meritorious service in assisting the throne, his vast knowledge, and his steady, composed nature, he was appointed prime minister by the new emperor, holding immense power in the imperial court. He remained incorruptible and self-disciplined, always loyal and devoted. As for me, as the prime minister's wife, I successfully gave birth to the child in my womb, a healthy and lovely baby boy. Fu Yunmiao named him Fu Nianan, wishing him a life of peace and smooth paths. Later, I gave birth to a daughter, naming her Fu Changle, wishing her a lifetime of joy and freedom from worries, with both a son and a daughter, bringing joy to our knees. I became the prime minister's wife whom everyone envied. My family no longer met tragic ends like in my past life. My father peacefully enjoyed his position as the head of the Hanlin Academy, highly respected by all. My mother was healthy and well, enjoying her twilight years in peace. My clan members also lived safe, smooth, and prosperous lives, free from any more disasters. Blessed with many children and grandchildren, a few more years passed. The court was stable, and the country was peaceful and prosperous. Fu Yunmiao submitted his resignation to the new emperor, asking to retire and return to his hometown. The new emperor tried everything to make him stay, but he insisted on resigning, wishing only to spend the rest of his life with me. With no other choice, the new emperor had to grant his request, bestowing upon him thousands of acres of fertile land and 10,000 taels of gold, allowing him to live a life of leisure. Fu Yunmiao took me and our 2 children, leaving behind the conflicts of the court, to travel and enjoy the scenery, journeying across the length and breadth of the country, taking taking in all the beautiful sights of the world. We went to the streams of Qinghe to relive our youth, to the water towns of Jiangnan to see the small bridges and flowing rivers, and to the northern frontier grasslands to watch the wind bend the grass to reveal the sheep and cattle. Sitting in the carriage, our daughter Qinghe snuggled in my arms, laughing and playing, while our son Nianan quietly read a book. It was a picture of warmth and harmony. Looking at the green hills and clear waters outside the window, my heart was filled with peace. I couldn't help but ask Fu Yunmiao beside me, why didn't you stay in the imperial court? With your abilities, you could have surely assisted the new emperor in ushering in a golden age, reaching the pinnacle of power, and leaving a legacy for generations to come. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, his tone carrying a hint of doting affection, mixed with a touch of laziness and a gentle smile.
It is too exhausting, the court rivalries and constant scheming. I grew tired of them long ago. In this life of mine, I do not ask for much. In my youth, I only wish to be worthy of you. In my middle years, I only wish to keep you safe. Now, I only wish to be by your side, watching our children grow and living a quiet, peaceful life with you for the rest of our days.
My face flushed red, and lowering my eyes, I reached out and gave him a gentle nudge, chiding him playfully. You old rogue. The children are right here. Stop talking nonsense. He leaned down, making as if to kiss the corner of my lips, giving me a gentle, fleeting kiss. A light, tender, and lingering kiss, and whispered softly, full of tenderness.
Then tonight, when the night is deep and quiet, we shall talk properly. Does madam want another daughter or a son? Whether it is a boy or a girl, I will love them all.
I pushed him away with a gentle fist, my cheeks burning hot. Nonsense. I'm ignoring you. I lifted the carriage curtain. Outside, the green bamboo swayed. The spring scenery was bright and beautiful. The warm breeze brushed against my face, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers and the singing of birds. It was a picture of perfect peace. The sunlight fell upon me, warm and comforting, as happiness and tranquility enveloped me, living this life over again. I had finally freed myself from the hatred and suffering of my past life, escaped the entanglement of Xiao Cong, and married Fu Yunmiao, who truly loved me and protected me for a lifetime, with both a son and a daughter. My family is safe and healthy. I have lived a life completely different from my previous one, a peaceful and happy life. I have no regrets in this lifetime.